Welcome to episode 106 of A Pint with Seaniebee. Before we get started, another mention for the Patreon account that I've set up. I'm not going to spend too long talking about it. I know how much ads and stuff at the top of podcasts irritate podcast listeners. But anyway, I do have a Patreon account set up. I am trying to monetize the podcast. The podcast does come with quite a considerable amount of running expenses and has been a labor of love for the past coming up to 3 years, would you believe? Can't believe how time has flown so quickly. Anyway, I'm asking those of you who have a spare $1 or $2 a month to spend to sign up to become a subscriber and fan of the podcast. The website to go to is listed in the blurb of this podcast and most of them at the moment. It is www.patreon.com/Seaniebee. Really appreciate any of you who could sign up. A number of you have already, and thank you to those of you who have. All right, on to today's episode. We've got a couple of crackers before the end of the year. Today's is with one of the UK's preeminent family lawyers. We will be talking about marriage breakdown, the Catholic Church. Lots of tips on how to pick the right partner so you don't end up in a lawyer's office 4 years into a marriage looking for a divorce. Without further ado, we're going to fade in to Richard Collins.
A law firm called Keystone Law. I have a solicitor, lawyer, barrister, a solicitor with me. First solicitor, I think, on A Pint with Seaniebee, but this guy has also got an awful lot more to his bow. He made the jump from advertising into law, which I'm very intrigued as to why. And I'm welcome to the podcast, Richard Collins. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Is it your first podcast?
It is my first podcast.
Go!
Absolutely. Be gentle. Yeah.
You hail from Ireland, you said. Where?
Well, the family
okay.
is Irish,
Yeah.
so there's lots of mad Irish, relatives. And when I was a kid, I remember the parties, and everyone had to get up and do a turn and all that. But really, I grew up in Wales, and that's where the trouble started.
Were you born in Wales? Or?
I was born in Wales, in South Wales. This was like the 1960s. It was a very different place now.
Yeah.
If you go to Cardiff now, it's like Los Angeles. There are all these 6-lane freeways. But in the 1960s...
And their teams in the Premier League.
It was just horrendous.
And so growing up in Cardiff in the 60s...
Well, the posh bit, so it was down the coast. So when all the coal and the steel happened in the 19th century, they didn't want to live in Cardiff because it was like a shithole.
Yeah.
So they built this really quite nice Victorian town with these big Gothic mansions, and that is where I grew up. But it was like the human equivalent of being buried alive, and it was the start point of everything really, because all you could do there. So first of all, if you were different, you weren't safe.
Right.
So learning at school was kind of covert, because you get beaten up if you were doing well.
If you're just smart.
Absolutely. And, the other thing, that there's nothing to do. So all I had first was black and white and then colour telly. And so I just watched telly because I could see there's this whole very different world out there. I watched telly, all hours. And because I watched it with my family, I kind of knew what they liked, all this kind of 1970s crap and, all that lowest common denominator stuff. And so I was really into it. So at the age of 18, I knew more about telly than any kid in the UK.
Did you know Welsh? Did you learn Welsh?
Yeah, I had to learn Welsh in school.
I've
got O-level Welsh. Yeah.
And were you good in school? Did you have a happy childhood? Was it?
Apart from the terminal port of being in Wales. I kind of always had the sense there was something other than there, and that I was just, it was like a waiting room. I
had that in Dublin. Yeah.
You had that as well?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get out at some point.
Yeah, and they make it very clear in these communities that if you want something different, that's not going to work. So very early on, you learn to kind of hide all that, or suppress all that, or to kind of dumb down your interest in creativity, or just being different, just to kind of get through it, really. I knew I couldn't get on in Cardiff. There's the Taffia. Unless you speak Welsh and you know the right people, you're not going anywhere down there back then. But now the BBC's moved in and it's all kind of completely different. But it's funny, the whole language thing, because, they're not keen on the English. And I had a client actually in West Wales, in the posh Georgian bit, and I went into this cafe with her, and there are these women speaking Welsh. And they were sort of saying, oh, who's she with? Who's this fancy man she with? And at the end of the cup of tea, I sort of went up to them and said, oh, goodbye in Welsh, and their blood drained from their faces. Yeah. But they obviously think that you're English.
People from Rim here aren't from Rim.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of that.
How did you get out?
How did I get out?
Yeah.
I went to university. I came to London. Like, everything turns on a sixpence, doesn't it? Like everything.
Yeah.
I met this girl at a party who was kind of particularly glamorous, and she said, I've just come back from a shoot. And I said, what is a shoot? Tell me, what is this?
You got a gun.
Yeah. She was actually at JWT. She started to describe what was going on there. And then, hilariously, because I was too late, I applied for the job at Saatchi, which was the job that every kid in England wanted. Yeah. And I went into this room, and there were these horrible men, again, this kind of fog and smoke. And this man said to me, do you mind if I tell you what I think about you? And I said, well, no, go ahead. He said, I think you're horrible upmarket C.T. And
Charles Saatchi.
And arrogant to boot. And I laugh because coming from Wales, people say this to you every day.
Yeah.
And then when I got the job, I met this guy and I said, so how did I get the job that everybody wanted? And he said, actually, you were the only kid who laughed. All the other kids kind of got all flustered and nervous or whatever. So
what year was that?
This is in 1984.
Okay, so Saatchi and Saatchi is talking about a JWT, two huge ad agencies in London. Saatchi and Saatchi probably in their heyday around that time when they were probably 10 years in operation and they'd sort of taken over the world.
That's right.
Domination.
That's right. My first day, we got the McDonald's account, and then this call went round, look, everybody is to come to reception. And so I went down to reception in the lift. And the doors open, and I saw a sight that I can never unsee. There were secretaries of Magnum de Champagne, tomato sauce, chips, burgers, sex. It was just all kicking off. And I got home really late, and it was the days where there were no mobile phones, so my father rang the landline. And he said, how was your first day at work? And I said, if this is work, I want to work forever.
Yeah, it was way back then.
It was just fantastic. But this is how it also translates to what I'm doing now, because I was dealing with really volatile, often very high people, creatives who were these kind of gods. And you would go down there and you'd have to sell their work, and they'd have to have confidence that you were selling their work properly. And so, I'd never come across people like that. They were given lots of rope.
Yeah. Occasionally hung themselves.
Usually, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're a client service, right?
Yeah. But I really wasn't in the swim of the politics there. Because advertising, I think, is kind of politics and no brains, and law is politics and brains.
I found the politics was almost encouraged, especially in America. When I went there.
Well, I think that was
rats
the
in a
model.
cage sort of stuff. Yeah, they want people to be shopping their colleagues and getting over. It was nasty.
That was the whole structure of Saatchi. So you'd have groups competing against each other because they believe that thesis meets antithesis creates this creative synthesis.
Yeah.
So they would actively put people together who weren't going to get along. There was going to be friction.
Yeah.
This is all part of the master plan. And my problem with all this is that I'm not good with the face. So even though, we were sent off to this finishing school, we were told, never talk about yourself, always get the client to talk about them, always show an interest in them, always offer this and that, and keep them sweet. Whatever happens, keep them sweet.
I knew this existed.
Yeah, absolutely. A big part of that is the face. It's getting the work from the creative that you don't really believe in. You've got to go off and sell it.
Yeah.
And you've got to come back with a bought, campaign. And that's where I fall down, because if I don't believe in it, or if I don't think it's good, like the face doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then when people start to see that, there's only one way this is going to finish.
I think the seed that finishing school and even that job description sowed is probably what we're reaping now in terms of the fact that they're just being trampled on and agencies don't do any great work because it is actually client service driven culture of fear and do what you're told and don't challenge. Yeah. Whereas the reality is the best clients I've had want you and me to go into a room and worry them with our intelligence and our point of view that maybe they haven't thought about.
Yeah. Well, now it's the era of client power, isn't it? From what I understand from my friends, clients are dictating what's going on. Yeah. Whereas before, you would go in and say, oh, look, we've got this crazy creative idea, take a chance, it might go banzai.
Were you 10 years in advertising before you decided to go? And were you getting quite pissed off with it?
The 7-year itch. I was hitting the 1990s. I've been there for 7 years. And I thought, hang on a minute, you've got to be careful because you could end up in a barn conversion in Oxfordshire calling yourself a marketing consultant. It could all end very badly for you. It could all end very, very badly for you. So
At least you have a barn conversion.
like a small
You
bar.
could end up in a one-bedroom apartment
With
animals,
animals.
paying $2,000 a month
Yeah.
with just
yeah.
a suitcase and all your stuff's in storage
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah.
That is-
But actually, what I really liked about the job was the psychology, the whole psychological aspect of it. The fact that these campaigns could really change the way people lived. And it was that was kind of turning me on. So when it was all going wrong, when addicts have the moment when they decide that they're through with drink and drugs and it's all going to be clean and recovery, my kind of addict moment was I was in a Birmingham hotel and we were discussing biscuit packaging. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm like 31 years old, and...
So that was similar to what happened to me. It was probably on Gillette, but it was these 40 people on a conference call for 2 hours debating
all frightened.
a word,
Yeah.
smooth or silky or whatever. And I was like, quite apart from anything else, the amount of brain power that's being expended on something utterly meaningless.
Yeah.
I always said I could probably divide by 10 any of those conference calls and get things done quicker, better, more effectively, more money and cheaper.
Yeah.
And you could do it.
Yeah.
And there's just this torture.
Well, I won't name the guy, but I remember sitting in a room and we were all talking, actually on this occasion quite sensibly, and we were getting somewhere. And he just said, stop. And there was like this silence. And there's this very dramatic pause and a further dramatic pause. And he got his Mont Blanc pen out and he said, it's coming. The idea is coming. And we watched this guy draw a circle for like 90 seconds. A whole room full of people.
Which was meant to be a biscuit, wasn't it?
I don't know what the hell it was meant to be. But so at age 31, you kind of think, hang on a minute, this is not going to...
So you saw the man behind the curtain. So you got this...
I'd always seen the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But I thought, actually, the money's good, and I've got, a credit card, and I'm taking people to lunch at the Gavroche, and I'm 25, and I'm flying to Miami, and I got the BMW, and I've got the Magnum and the McDonald's. So actually, shut up and enjoy it.
I mean, you had all the trappings, and so to sort of chuck them in was pretty brave, right? I'm sure a lot of your friends thought, what?
Yeah, no.
I probably would have said it like that.
Well, actually, there was an element of that. So I remember really distinctly giving the BMW back and then going to the shops and thinking, Christ, I can't afford to... I bought a can of tuna, I really remember it. Thinking, God, it's like tinned fish from now on.
Was it an acrimonious leave or just a see ya?
It was a slow realization that there was nowhere to go and that actually I closed the door and locked it and bolted it and then burnt the door. I couldn't go back. Yeah. And then once I started telling people, of course, I wanted to be made redundant because I wanted the cash. They found out. So whilst, 99.9% of London's being made redundant, they wouldn't pay me a penny piece. So I had to resign in the end because obviously someone snitched on me and said, this guy wants to go. So I had no cash. But
Were you down?
Yeah, but not out.
No.
And I thought, what's the counterpoint to all this? Insecurity, crazy neurosis, working with all this kind of volatility. What is the counterpoint to all this? I know what I'll do. I'll become a lawyer. And I'm quite good at client service because I got on the finishing school course and I'm really good at that and people seem to think I kind of like that. And I'm also interested in psychology and how relationships work and how people are manipulated to do things. And I met this woman and I said, look, I want high on interest and low on law because I'm never going to get the textbook out and the marker pen and talk about subsection 6 and that's never going to happen.
Okay.
And she said, that's easy, it's family, it's just tissues, and a telephone. Yeah, off you go.
But don't you have to be, didn't you have to go and do some mad training? Or?
So you do a law degree in 1 year, a professional training course, year 2, and then you do 2 years as a trainee, so 4 years. Right. 2 years no money, and 2 years with really rotten money.
When you started doing the first 2 years, were you going, I've hit this looks good?
No, I didn't have a job. It was Russian roulette,
How did you get by? Did you have to take bar jobs?
Well, what I did is I studied in the afternoon, I worked in graphic design in the morning. And again, those people were really fun and really nice. And when I look back now, that was another fork in the road. Maybe I should have kind of thrown in my lot with them and because they were
graphic design company.
Yeah, they were a load of fun and I really, really enjoyed that. Because I'm quite kind of visual, I think in pictures, I don't think in subsection 1.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody who's been quite as analytical as Because it's quite clever what you just said about that you studied what you were good at and what you thought was a bit in the ad business.
Yeah, but actually that's the really wrong thing, because when you're different and creative and you enjoy all that, and people in Wales are saying you can't be like that, you've got to work in a bank, you've got to buckle down, you've got to do the sensible thing and have a family and be normal.
Yeah.
And when people tell you that and you learn that, you think that's the answer. So actually, when you're in this environment that actually you really enjoy but is chaotic, you think, oh Christ, maybe they're right, maybe I should be doing something stable and secure and safe. Maybe I do want that, but actually you don't want that. It's what you've been told you want.
Yeah, I agree. And things like ambition. And I was saying to someone, if I had to live, like, would I like to be young again? I said I'd love to be 15, knowing what I know.
Yeah.
I realised so much of what I didn't do was based on fear or someone telling me.
But do you know what? It's so easy now, isn't it, to look back. There are so many obvious forks in the road. At the time, you just can't tell. Yeah.
So when was the moment then though that you said right now this actually is now starting to open up and I can now see? Was there any one thing that happened that you?
Well, I was just really lucky because I had a Catholic upbringing, and there was this firm where they took a chance on old people. So if they took 3 trainees, they take 2 regular ones and 1 kind of oddball one. And so the guy before me was a senior policeman, and the woman before me was a concert pianist. And all those kind of crazy people really worked out. So when I rocked up, they were like, we don't kind of understand you, but this is what we do, and it's kind of worked in the past, so come along. And of course, because we're all older and we've got a lot of experience, and we're bringing lots of different stuff to the party. So I was Catholic, and it was a Catholic law firm with a speciality in divorce. And not only that, but the guy who ran the department was the guy. He was like the eminence grise of divorce. And I was really incredibly lucky to kind of slip into his practice and as a junior person help him out. I was incredibly lucky. Like some of the clients that I was on.
And having a mentor like him.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so let's go the Catholic thing and the divorce thing.
Yeah.
Catholic divorce, discuss. We now have it in Ireland 15 years ago.
Well, so sometimes he would ask them to give their rings to him, their wedding rings, and I would take them over to the Catholic church and put them in the poor box. We'd give him back in that way. In other ways, he would decide there must be out there some poor Catholics who need some free advice. All these rich people can pay, but all like these needy Catholics. And he used to call it fire insurance, that if we really help these people for nothing, for very little, then we would be rewarded in the next life. So there was all that going on. But obviously the whole Catholic annulment thing is completely different to legal divorce.
Where is it now? Is it still... Does the Catholic Church still fight for annulment?
Yeah. Well, you can have a deed of separation where you remain married, but to all intents and purposes, all your money is divided and you're living separately.
Yeah.
But you have not dissolved the contract that God helped you put together.
Because no person can rent the part. One of the things that I think is happening in the world now is religion is dying.
Do you think really?
I think so. I think we have the battle with Islam, but Islam's quite a young religion. But I think people are just going like Dougal and Father Ted. Come on now, it's all a bit nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? We're basically believing in revelation.
Yeah.
Which is hocus pocus stuff. It's weird that it's so powerful even in 2018.
On the other hand, you've got the whole of America that is embracing kind of Christian morality. You've got the Kardashians praying before,
But like I said, a priest said to me, the reason that Donald Trump, they've all backed the Trump administration, all the evangelical Christians and Catholics. You know why?
No.
Because he's going to put 2 new judges on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade and get abortion back on the fucking ban list, right?
Yeah.
I even have this thing of, why is it so important? This is very sacrilegious of me, but apart from God, who by the way, I think would probably know who's going to get born and who's going to get aborted anyway, right? If he's so omnipotent. But why is everyone so anxious about filling the world with people and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, it's just a means of controlling people, isn't it? But much more seriously, we should be talking about Catholic education, because my very first memory of school is being called into this assembly, and this kid was brought in screaming for some misdemeanor, And this kid was beaten like a gong in front of us. And I learned age 4 or age 5 that if you step out of line, Catholic style, that's what happens. You know, it's kind of cliche, isn't it? But you kind of think that when the bad stuff happens, it's because you haven't done the good Catholic stuff. And actually, I had a really serious ski accident when I was sort of 27, and I thought I was going to die. And so I really have known life or death. And in that moment, I talked to the guy upstairs. But having said, from the age of 13, refusing to go, it's so ingrained and it's so embedded.
I was on a slab in Denver with a suspected heart attack, and, which actually was not. It was fine. But they brought in
I bet insurance.
They brought in, yes, I did. Luckily, I was still in the admin at the time. But they brought a priest, a female priest, because it was American, which was cool.
Right.
And I said, "Are you here to give me the last rites?" And she said, "Yes." And I didn't do it. I said, "Okay, so just let me get this straight. If I get the last rites now, that means I go straight to the kingdom of heaven, right? Irrespective." And she went, "Yep." And I said, "If I got hit by a bus outside and was splattered and came in here, And she's gone, And you see how ridiculous that is. If I'm out of Hitler here, I can go,
But it was God's plan that you'll be slapped, isn't it? It was God's plan that you weren't done. But I
said I'm going to take it. I'm going to have that debate, that loophole debate, if he exists. And I get up there in about 4 hours, which I did. Was your Catholic upbringing quite strict?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you went to school.
The influence is strict. So I saw my parents just like lap it up. You know, so that was the message I was getting. And obviously the whole community, you have to go I went to Catholic school, you have to go every Sunday.
I went to Opus Day school.
God, yeah. And then you've got very Catholic teachers, priests and so on, you know, coming into school teaching you Sons and Lovers, you know, by D.H. Lawrence. You know, when I got married, you know, we went to the Catholic place and we had to kind of disclose that we were going to get married in the Church of England, and there was a lot of sniffing and regret. And the whole place smelled of cabbage in the usual way and so on. But this guy then went on to say, well, you can't be married in the eyes of the church, and if you don't commit to bringing up kids as Catholics. But while you're in here, let's talk about sex education, let's talk about relationships. And it's like, what do you know, really? What can you tell me?
A little bit more than we thought.
Age 33. you know. So there are all these kind of minor and major things going on out there that make you...
But it does fuck you up. I mean, it's lying to children, and that's at best, because it's also interfering with children, either in the way your classmate was, or sexually, as we have many thousands of people infected in Ireland. But it always stays with you when you grow up, and it's like, I often have to catch myself just to go, look, there's no big man in the sky. I mean, maybe there is. But there's still something we don't know.
It's very powerful, though, isn't it? I went to that place in Montserrat with the Black Madonna. We thought we would kind of queue, and then we thought, actually, nothing's worth this kind of wait. So we went around the back, and at the back, this priest kind of saw us attempting to leave and beckoned us in. There was like a secret way to see. And when we got to this Black Madonna, there were all these people there, literally on their knees and literally giving all of themselves to it. And it was the most, you know, something, I actually felt something. I couldn't work out whether, you know, I was going back in, you know, but actually what it really was just being caught up in the moment of this intense, 100% solid, belief.
I went to Garabandal in Spain, northern Spain, which is, that's one of the ones that is, to me, the most interesting, because it was in 1961. It was always to shepherd. It was like, you know, Fatima Lourdes. There's a whole lot of apparitions of the Virgin Mary to young shepherd girls. But she gave them this very specific, because normally it's like just pray and watch out for the priest and love thy neighbour. But this was really specific, that at some point in the future, God is going to show himself in a way that's unequivocal, filmable, and eternal.
Of course.
There. But now this woman's now 70, and she's going to announce 8 days beforehand. There's 2.5 million flights booked. And I went to this place, and it's kind of creepy. I was wandering around there. If I
is there a gift shop?
There's but it's not razzmatazz. It's a bit like, I wish they never said that. But what I can't understand is how you're sitting around the table of this shithole village in the mountains going, you know what I think we should do to get some tourists up here? And then stick with it for 50 years. So there's something bizarre that
Yeah.
you felt there and I felt as well, and I felt it was more demonic than nice. It didn't feel nice.
Yeah.
It felt a bit weird and kind of.
Yeah.
But then we have a God who's totalitarian, right? If we have to listen, but I say we're not going to solve the Catholic Church problems
we're not.
here. But you got into family law. Let's talk about what you do now and tell me, are things improving? What are the sort of trends that you see in our blissful wedding lives?
Well, marriage is, if you're talking statistics, marriage is down and cohabitation is up, so people are less interested in marrying. But in terms of human nature and the things that interest me, relationships and psychology and how people treat each other and what they do to each other, that ain't never going to change. That's kind of the joy and also the depression of the work. It's kind of like when you speak to a criminal lawyer, they're kind of burnt out after kind of 4 or 5 years, a lot of them, because they keep seeing these people who keep reoffending. And it's the same for me. Like, I keep seeing people several times a day who are going through the same pain, going through making the same mistakes, and will make the same mistakes with other people. And I think it's all about really what happens, in your childhood and what your map looks like and what your influences were and what you saw and what your parents were doing. And
so you're a believer that we repeat the sins of God?
I absolutely am.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I absolutely am. When I first started this, I kept seeing these kind of men who, with these kind of calcified hearts, really. They can't trust women, they can't open themselves to women, and therefore they can't make proper relationships with women. When you kind of like dug a bit deeper, it was kind of boarding school, or it was some sort of rejection by their parents, or they saw something in their early life that affected them. And so, to answer your question, I think that it hasn't changed, it'll never change.
There are people though who maybe it was so bad, or they were so shocked and ashamed at what happened to them that they are determined to change things.
Yeah.
And those people, I think, are a minority, but they do exist. People who there's no way my daughter is going to go through the shit that I had to go through or whatever.
But if you send people off to therapy, which I often do, a lot of clever people will have the intellectual capacity to say, I can see that I'm doing this and I'm behaving that way because of what happened to me and how I grew up and what my influences were and so on. But nonetheless, I continue to do it. So even though they have the intellectual insight, they often haven't got the emotional ability to kind of deal with it and resolve it. A lot of these kids who are starved of attention or didn't feel they were good enough, they're constantly screwing around just to kind of prove to themselves that other people find them attractive, they still got it. These ridiculous 40-year-old men on rollerblades in Hyde Park driving, soft top Jeeps. All these kind of things, I think, they're all embedded in what happens in your early life.
Where do you fall in terms of just your observations on things like violence towards women? There's two things that, actually, the law as it applies to, say, rape. I mean, we had husbands were allowed rape, but it was in Ireland up until recently. Is terrible, I think. I think only something like .something% of all cases get a criminal conviction. But have you seen with Me Too and the something like the internet, which I think has got to have had a huge impact on women being able to find other women and stuff they don't think to do about it.
Well, when I started this work 24 years ago, I remember quite clearly a certain attitude towards women and a certain attitude towards men. So if a woman grabbed hold of a frying pan or biffed a man, it was kind of semi-comedic. Whereas, with women, they were taken very seriously, as they should be. What's happening now is that the bar is lower and lower and lower, and more and more things are unacceptable. And, every year there's a trend, like last year someone had a narcissistic personality. This year it's all about coercive control. But, bullying...
buzzword.
Bullying won't be tolerated, Arguing in front of your children is an abuse to the child. It's abusive.
Which it probably is.
But
what about specifically the violence to women? Do you think that's down or up or...
Behaviours are not up or down. They're the same as they've always been.
Yeah. Except that there's the old image of the man who runs his castle and smacks people around if they're children and wives, which still, that machismo is still in South America. It's still
but it's got to be right, isn't it? So when I go to school age 4, no one bats an eyelid if a kid is really severely beaten in front of the school. No one bats an eyelid. Yeah. Now, It's just
Can't
should
do
be.
that. Yeah.
None of that. Absolutely none
Which
of that.
is good.
And that's got to be a good thing, of course.
What about the kind of the role you play, which, you know, I've helped advise some of my friends through divorce.
Oh God, that fills me with absolutely, yeah.
What, me, that it would be me?
Well, no, that people, you know, I get this all the time. Why am I getting $1 million? Because that man I met in the pub got X, or my friend who divorced, you know.
Yeah. And there's this thing which, I always say, let's say it's happened 8 times. With friends of mine from around the world, where I love the wife and the husband, and it's terrible that they're breaking up, and he's a dick and he's cheated on you, or you fucking bored with him, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you always say to them, for the sake of the kids, and for the sake of the pot of money that you have, just work it out between you.
Yeah.
And they all go, yeah, that's definitely, we don't want to be giving all our money to a bunch of lawyers, right?
They all
And
say
nearly
that.
7 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
War of the Roses breaks out, lawyers
Yeah.
tool up, and the pot is halved.
Yeah. First of all, everyone, underline everyone, always says, I want this to go amicably.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight. And rarely do those people stick to that. You know, in the old days, my parents' generation, in Ireland especially, you know, people would stay together. They'd stay together through thick and thin, however much they hated each other. And, you know, in France, President Mitterrand had another family. You have a little arrangement. And people put up with things because society wouldn't accept.
The tennis coach. Yeah,
you know, society wouldn't tolerate it. But now society doesn't really care that much. People can make their own choices. I just think, what kind of society is that where marriage is so disposable? And it doesn't really matter if you've got no kids. But I think when you've got kids, you have a duty to them really to try your best.
And what do you read into this? Is it boredom or just a fancy change?
It's wider than that. It's disposability. You buy a new telly and you bin it and you get another one. You know, you have a car, you want another one. You've got a husband, like, get another one. If you know, it's all about the pursuit of happiness. Freud said the meaning of life is love and work. And if you hate your work and you've got no love, you know, then there's no meaning in your life. And I think people, they kind of think, well, I'm watching the Kardashians, I'm watching TV. Why is my life like that? You know, and because it's not like that, then maybe I'll trade it in and see if it could be like that.
I keep coming back to this thing where I know women who have picked a man who they don't love. To marry.
For money?
Money, or because he'd be a more stable father for children.
In the Jane Austen style. Yeah.
And leave the pirate and move on with Jeff. Go camping and stuff like that. And then 4 years in, she's just bored senseless with Jeff and his fucking camping and the 3 kids and the collie dog, and she just wants to live. And quite often, maybe I'm wrong, but I find women, in my personal experience of life, tend not to be shagging around as much as men, but they will just leave.
Well,
I want to find a new man. I don't, you know.
It's funny, isn't it? Again, it's kind of, you know, mores and society. If a man leaves his wife and children, then that's kind of expected and understood. If a woman leaves her husband and children, there is something terribly wrong with that woman. But I think men and women have the same feelings. You know, they deal with those feelings in a different way, but they have the same feelings. And it's funny how there are all these value judgments attached to their decisions.
What sort of things would you say to 100 people who are about to get married this week that would avoid them having to be here in 3 or 4 years? Okay,
well, there are a number of things. The first thing is the person you are at 23 is not the person you are at 33, 43 or 53. And you've got to accept that people will grow and go in different directions. If you don't go with them, then you're at risk. So if you have common things, even if like watching the same TV program or something, if you have things in common that you both enjoy and you both share, you have shared experiences, that's going to make it a lot easier than if you diverge and you do your own thing and suddenly become independent. You know, this kind of quite famous QC said to me, whatever you do not leave your family and send them out to the country where you can buy the bigger house and stay in the city, because that is a recipe for disaster. Because I think separation is a recipe for disaster. But actually it comes down to kind of men again, really, and communication. When things are going wrong, it takes the braver person to say, listen, I'm not going to say this is ending. I'm not going to say that, you know, it's terminal for you. But, you know, we've got a problem, we need to talk about it and deal with it. And what people don't do is that. They kind of bury it, they kind of park it, they put it under, and those things, they take a life of their own. And before you know it, you're not spending time with someone, you don't know what the hell they're like, you don't really like them, you've never made any effort to sort out these problems. But what I say now, the longer I'm in this work, is don't divorce, actually, is my mantra. You absolutely should overturn every stone to see whether the marriage is capable of being saved.
Quite a lot of people I know do let stuff fester to the point where it's too late to unturn every stone, because they're almost getting the Dutch courage up to throw the divorce down on the table and say, I need out of this.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not making any kind of gender value judgments, but women have the great advantage of talking to their friends.
Yeah.
And men don't in the same way. So when a woman comes into me, when a man comes to me, it's a completely different experience. Because a man will use me like a counsellor. Because he won't see a counsellor, because men don't see counsellors. But he'll come into me and say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is what's happened, this is how it made me react and made me feel. Whereas women have kind of got it out of their system. So when they come into you, they've talked it through with their friends, and it's just a different experience.
Have you started to notice men becoming more grown up emotionally over the last 10 years? That will come in here?
Yeah, a bit.
Just a bit?
A bit, yeah.
Because the whole suicide thing and all that stuff, it's just, it all goes back to this. And again, that probably goes back to your point about what happened in school or with your father or whatever. You had to be a man, no puffin mind.
You're responsible.
You couldn't show any female characteristics.
Yeah.
And I think with, the rise of equality and gender equality and all that kind of stuff, I was kind of hoping that would get a little bit better for.
And it works the other way, because women will often say, I'm so devastatingly unhappy, so searingly unhappy, but I am not going to leave until these kids are 18 and through their education.
Yeah.
Because my job as their mother is to get them through that.
Yeah.
So, in the same way, men sort of say, I am supposed to be the man, I'm supposed to be in charge and, providing and, all this kind of nonsense. Yeah, same thing.
I was hoping it was going to be a lot more positive.
Well.
No, because you're a good bellwether. But you're a good bellwether because you've been doing it for so long, and so I would have hoped, like, for example, the difference between 1995 and today with a lot of my friends is a lot of them are less uptight. They're more relaxed about, that someone will go into a gay bar without freaking out. And, they're able to talk a bit more about their emotions than they did. And you'd hope that might have a knock-on effect on marriages and friendships.
But actually, if you think what's happening with kids, they don't talk. They message and they send pictures. But kind of, words are dead, really, aren't they? If you watch teenagers interact, it's all about email and messaging, and you don't often sit down and have a proper kind of conversation.
So talk to me about how things may or may not be changing for good or ill with the children coming out of these marriages.
Well, the law is always behind life, and when I first started this, women would get maintenance for the rest of their lives. Now the court is recognising that, rightly, that women are independent, and very many women earn more than men. And so they're making term maintenance orders. In the children arena, it was really rare to have 50-50 split of care, because fathers were seen not to be the same providers as mothers. But that's really changing now. So it's becoming more and more common that you have 1 week on, 1 week off, or a more equal split of time with fathers and mothers. So, the law is catching up with life.
We have a lot of issues in Ireland with policing the breakup. Fathers not paying maintenance to punish the wife because she's got a boyfriend or stuff like that, and then that affects maybe some social welfare payments and stuff like that goes on. So the wife then says, okay, well, keep your money, I'll just work it. It feels very kind of unfair. It feels very like it's yes, the judge will have said this, but the actions, they just don't follow them, and no one goes and...
Well, professionally, we're not allowed to link money and children. But clients do it all the time. If you give me an extra day, I will give you that long weekend away that you want. It's like, but children aren't carpets to be bought and traded, but it goes on a lot. You have hurt me the most of anyone in my life, and I really hate you. And how can I punish you the most? What is the thing that's going to hurt you most? I know.
Some other man tucking your kids in at night or something. But you're right, kids get in trouble. Phones and the thing. Away from the trials and turmoils of matrimony, how do you see the world today? Are you optimistic about the future or pessimistic?
Well, I'm from Wales, so I'm like half glass empty, like in all situations. Yeah. So, and also I'm Catholic Welsh, so I'm always waiting to be punished. When I was 11, I went into the confessional. I wasn't forgiven. I had to go out, and I was told to come back. Yeah. I was kind of expecting that. And that's kind of informed my life, really. I'm always waiting for, But on the other hand, it's like being an undertaker or a cancer specialist or a dentist. If you accept that every person who comes in is in a crisis, then it's fine. You deal with it, and that's your norm. And this is why this job is so crazily interesting. Because there is nothing more interesting than people's lives and what they do to each other. And people say, well, how do you remember all these different cases? It's like watching 40 really super interesting films a year that you're really involved in.
Yeah.
You remember all the characters, you remember everything they've done. And you think, I have heard it all.
Yeah.
And then someone walks in and, you really haven't heard it all. However jaded I am.
Is there always a goodie and a baddie? Usually.
Both are always good and both are always bad.
Right.
It's very rare that there's one angel and one devil. And that's the interesting thing, because when you speak to someone and do their statement, it's always a huge surprise when you hear the other side of the story.
Yeah.
It's a real shock.
Yeah.
Because some people are really good at kind of getting you on board, like charming you and manipulating you.
Yeah.
And so you've always got to have half in your mind, what's the other side going to be? It's like playing some kind of big emotional game of chess. Like, if they do that move, and what's the next move? Then what's the next move? Then when do you end up?
I find as well when I've been working with some of my friends who are going through it, even though, as I said, I might love both.
Well, people choose, of course. People choose their friends, don't
yes.
they?
I mean, in a couple of cases, I've been nominated by both. So it's all.
But it's quite rare that friends stay friends of both. So very early on, this really upsets people. Friends will think, who am I better off tying my wagon to, him or her? And that's often very upsetting for people, because friends they've had for decades suddenly side with the other side, you never see them again.
Do people who don't have a lot of money divorce easier than people who do?
No. When you've got loads of money, it's much easier.
Okay.
The hardest cases are when there is no money.
Okay.
And there's not enough to meet people's needs. People will always need to be in loving relationships. That will never ever change.
Yeah.
I'm kind of worried about the disposability thing. There's no fault divorce coming in to make divorce easier. And
is there a way of fixing that?
I'm fixing what?
The disposability. I mean, like, everything's disposable. We can't read a book now.
Yeah.
It's almost like that.
Yeah.
My marriage is 30 seconds, or it's 180 characters.
Yeah. Well, I acted for someone who cheated on his wife at the honeymoon. So, off his head, pissed at the party, and then zigzags off, and then has sex with someone else. So, all of that. And also people not knowing what other people are like.
Before they get married.
Yeah.
What would you say, last question, to your younger self, the guy who's leaving Wales?
If you are creative, and if you like creative people, and if fun is the thing that drives you in life, follow the fun.
Follow the fun. We normally hear follow the money. Follow the fun. That's what I like to hear on Pint with Seaniebee. Richard Collins, thanks for being a guest.
My pleasure.